Hi, welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. It's taken almost 3 years for this to come together, so I'm delighted to announce that my guest this week is John Hodgman, an author, a performer, and the host of the podcast Judge John Hodgman, which you should be listening to if you aren't already. You may have seen him on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, Bored to Death, Battlestar Galactica, and Married. Maybe you've caught his Netflix special Ragnarok, and hopefully you've stumbled across his 3 collections of fake trivia, The Areas of My Expertise, More Information Than You Require, and That Is All. His latest book, Vacationland, is something of a departure, with Hodgman abandoning his goofy fake facts to tell stories from his real life as a middle-aged weird dad, and finding something transcendent and honest in the telling. It was a wonderful thing to see live a few years ago, and it's a lovely read now. You should pick it up. Paperback comes out today. John picked Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express, an all-star production of Agatha Christie's classic mystery set against the glorious, exotic backdrop of a world that never quite existed. With the likes of Judi Dench, Johnny Depp, Willem Dafoe, Daisy Ridley, Olivia Colman, Penelope Cruz, Michelle Pfeiffer, Derek Jacobi, Josh Gad, and Leslie Odom Jr. running around the elaborate carriages of a trans-European luxury train as Branagh's magnificently baroque Hercule Poirot does his best to solve an impossible murder, it arrived in the world last fall as a totally unnecessary film, like didn't Sidney Lumet do this 40 years ago? And turned out to be a delightful surprise. Don't worry, we won't spoil the ending. This is someone else's movie.
The chief reason is geographical, obviously, and then the vice chief reason is that, you know, when someone says talk about a thing, that's usually when I draw this perfect blank.
Right.
There are no things. How could I talk about anything? And but it struck me like yesterday. Oh, I know what I can talk about. Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah. What? I mean, that is always the first question. What made you choose it?
So, well, I saw it,
right.
Which is unusual enough for movies.
In the last 5-6 months, right? It's a fairly recent film.
Yes, and I saw it on an airplane, probably the way it was meant to be seen. No, well,
Camera 65.
I take it back. I mean, what's interesting about Murder on the Orient Express, both the new version, the Kenneth Branagh version, and the old, the 1974 Sidney Lumet version, is that they are lavish.
Yes.
Like, the screen is dripping with production value. Never mind acting. They got such beautiful scenery for everybody to chew in both movies.
Yeah, as though they knew that, you know, people might not want to watch people sitting in a train chamber. The carriage isn't enough. No,
and no one wants it. No, I mean, that's it. And no one wanted it in 74, and no one really wanted it in 17. But I will explain my journey to understanding how corrected I stand, please. But even though both of those movies are profoundly lavish productions, they are based on junk. I mean, with all respect to Agatha Christie, master of the form, she wrote books that you use to pass the time.
Yeah, it was the pulp of the age.
Yeah, while you were on a train, for example. So it was the airplane movie of its time. Mm-hmm. You would read it, and obviously you love, and maybe people are going to be mad at me because I don't mean to downgrade Agatha Christie's legacy and literary skill in any way. Indeed, readability is a great legacy, you know,
yeah.
and something that a lot of writers don't bother to aspire to, but it is the most, you know, it's an incredible rare gift to be able to write something and create a world that people want to return to again and again and again. But Murder on the Orient Express is a pulp. It's a small thing. It truly is it's a
wisp of a book.
Exactly.
It's all just, it's plot evidence.
Right. It's a CSI of its day.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a procedural.
It's a forensic. Yeah, it is. It really is.
And yet for some reason there was this dual impulse in history to create a gorgeous, huge, expensive movie out of it. Now, obviously, even in 1974, that was predicated on a nostalgia for a kind of filmmaking, for a bygone era, for a certain caliber of movie actors that had not, you hadn't seen for a while.
Sure.
Ingrid Bergman, won an Academy Award for a single monologue for that movie. And I haven't seen it in years, but I'm going to say she probably deserved it.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, the difference between 74 and 2017 is that 74 doesn't... It somehow feels as self-aware as the new version, but it's not as indulgent. There's still a greater sense of, we're doing literature, we're having fun with it, but this is a real book that we're adapting. And then Branagh just goes all in on, isn't this ridiculous? Look how much fun. I have Judi Dench and Michelle Pfeiffer here, and they're just going to stare daggers at one another for 4 minutes, and it'll be fun. Trust me.
That's I wouldn't have said that the 2017 Murder on the Orient Express would be irreverent, but you're right.
Well, it's Branagh is the ringmaster, essentially, because he's cast himself as Poirot.
Yeah.
He just gets to set that ludicrous,
right,
self-indulgent tone. My mustache has 2 mustaches. I mean, it's a magnificent.
So we got to talk about the mustache.
Oh, we could do a whole episode on the mustache.
Well, I mean, so yeah, in 74 they make this sort of nostalgia, they take something small and pay it great reverence. Mm-hmm. And whether it deserves that reverence or not, I think is an interesting conversation.
Sure.
But they did it, right? And guess what? They did it. There was no reason to do it again.
Yes, exactly.
It was when I saw that the trailer came up on, Apple trailers or whatever, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah,
who in the world wants this?
When I saw that the film was being made, when they'd announced that Branagh was playing Poirot, I think that was the first piece of information that came out. I just thought, no one's going to go see this. It's just, It's not a film for a modern audience. But of course, now, I mean, I'm almost 50. There are people who are 60 and 70 who go to 2 movies a year, and they tell me which ones they are because they think I'm a contemporary. Right. And they all went to see the murder.
Everyone. They were excited. Every old person in the world.
Yeah.
Did
you know
me.
Michelle Pfeiffer is in this movie? They were really excited about that.
It's interesting. I mean, and Michelle Pfeiffer was so great. Mm-hmm. And, we hadn't seen her in a movie for a long time. So it was a similar...
Yeah.
And there aren't the roles in contemporary movie house, non-independent cinema for those actors.
Yeah, somebody's mom, somebody's grandmother.
Yeah, like Catherine Keener.
Oh, yeah.
For example, I think about it probably once a week, that her role in, was it Captain Phillips? Tom Hanks?
Yes, she drives Tom Hanks to the airport.
Yeah, you don't see her in the movie. You see them holding hands and maybe one blurry 3/4 profile. And that's Catherine Keener's role in that movie.
Yeah. And
I'm glad she got a payday that day, for heaven's sake. But, so but I was like, no one wants this. No one, who cares? This is ridiculous. And then I watched the trailer and I saw Kenneth Branagh as a thin Hercule Poirot.
That's true. That's a very different interpretation.
Striding across the top of a train car in the snow with that mustache, which defies all senses. Yeah. It defies sense and your own senses. You can't take it in.
Yeah, it's the Metatron, right? Or his face is the Metatron. I'm trying to figure it out because, you can't hear the voice of God without your head exploding,
right,
according to Kevin Smith. And he manages to have this thing on his face that pulls more focus than the rest of his head.
And suddenly the movie seemed essential. I was so oh, may I curse on your podcast? I'm like, oh, fuck, it's on. Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot. What a ridiculous reinterpretation of both this character, physically, obviously, and an impossible mustache, and you're on top of a train car, and there's whatever that pop song they used to...
didn't see the trailer. I try to avoid them. They tend to spoil too many things now, so I will...
Okay, but...
all marketing.
But come on, it's Murder on the Orient Express.
On a train.
Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing. It's a whodunit that has been around for...
Well, 100 years.
Almost 100 years. And what's interesting, though, is one of the most famous twist endings that I had completely forgotten.
Okay.
And, I know that I saw Albert Finney as Poirot, and when I was an adult, probably a young adult, probably, but, maybe I turned it off in the middle. I don't know.
And you didn't see Clue, which famously...
I never saw Clue.
One of the three endings is
the
Murder on the Orient, because of course it has to
No
be.
spoilers.
Nah. Again, 30-year-old movie.
Right. It's like, that was the other thing. It's like, how could you make this movie? Everyone knows the story. Now, obviously, I didn't. But even so, it was like, so then I was interested in seeing it. You should this is the thing you were saying. I didn't want to watch the trailer because it gives away too much information.
I just don't want to know. I don't want to know relationships. I don't want to know who's in scenes with whom, because then I'll start thinking, oh, that person's not dead yet. That person's going to die later.
I understand, but now that you've seen the film, do go back and watch the trailer, because I don't know who cut that thing together, but it's really good. It's really good, and I would find myself of an evening just revisiting the trailer, because it's that they didn't do it in the movie, but it's some really banging pop song.
Okay.
Not banging, that makes it sound like a club song, but it's like it's probably the most famous song in the world, and I just don't know who it is or what it is, right? Because I'm old. But
okay.
And it is cut like the most incredible, not action film so much, but there's that moment where Poirot, they say, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm probably the greatest detective in the world." And they cut to this song, and you're like, "Oh, it's on! I want to see this movie." It was. And that marrying of contemporary and old timey was very. I wish they had done it in the movie, honestly. And maybe if I went back and watched it, maybe they did a little bit.
No, it's fairly classical.
It's fairly right. Yeah. Well, maybe that's right. But the thing is, like, even though I determined that it was an essential piece of culture, naturally I didn't manage to see it in theaters because I don't go to the movies as much as I would like to because of life.
Sure, you are working.
Right, but then I'm on a plane, and I'm burning through. It's a long flight with my son, who's almost 13, and I'm burning through Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 because I haven't seen that.
Okay, also the perfect place to watch that movie.
It was great, and then I was a great day at the movies. I have to say, that flight to San Diego, and I turn and I see he's watching Murder on the Orient Express, which does not come as a great surprise because he was interested in the trailer as well. We had watched it, and I'm like, well, how is it? And he goes, it's good. And he's like, do you know the ending? I'm like, no, I don't think I do. He's like, you should watch it, and so I did. And so it was this weird experience of having watched kind of the middle of the movie over his shoulder for a minute, and then anyway, I really and what I experienced when I saw the movie was, I mean, it is hard not to appreciate the amazing amount of production design that went into it, and the directing is good. I mean, I don't know.
No, he's a very good filmmaker.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird to watch him snap back around from being the guy who pulled an Olivier and wrote, directed, starred in his own version of Henry V, and then
Hamlet.
And then Hamlet, well, 10 years later. But between that, he also played with genres and did, he made Dead Again.
Dead Again, right? Not Dead Alive. That was a different movie.
I would watch both of those films in a heartbeat, be pushed together.
That's a good double feature. Yeah.
But he was really doing, and Peter's Friends, which no one remembers because it's barely been...
Right. That was Emma Thompson, Stephen Fry.
Hugh Laurie. It's The Big Chill, but it's a really...
Cambridge.
A really good version of that.
Right.
And then he kind of solidified into Shakespeare again with Hamlet and Much Ado About Nothing as well, which I always forget, which is delightful. And in Hamlet, he, famously tricked Castle Rock into letting him make the full version by saying, "We'll cut it down," and then saying, "But I have a 4-hour full text of Hamlet shot in 70 millimeter. You're going to put that out, right?" And it's genius.
Yeah.
No one else has ever done this,
right,
to my knowledge, and it speaks to both a ludicrous self-regard.
Yes.
Because he's, of course, playing Hamlet, 20 years older than he should be.
Right.
And doing this massive, massive production and managing to sell it. And it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's quite beautiful. I mean, you need to see it larger, but...
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it since then.
Yeah.
I would... And, ludicrous self-regard is, is he knighted? Is he Sir Kenneth Branagh?
don't know that he is, actually.
Let's just say
Probably
OBE at the
is.
very
Yeah,
least.
he's got to have some stuff on him.
OBE, Kenneth Branagh. I know you're listening.
OG, OBE.
Yeah, I really appreciate your work, but even you must appreciate the ludicrous self-regard. But also that fueled the ambition and playfulness of doing those different kinds of projects.
Exactly.
And trying to make Frankenstein that was kind of dumb. He is willing to not succeed, and for a while, kind of didn't.
There was a rough patch.
Yeah, exactly. So it was exciting to see him come back, and what I appreciated immediately upon seeing him on screen is he is perfectly suited to Poirot, who has ludicrous self-regard. Like that's who he is, and I have to say that as much as I appreciated Michelle Pfeiffer in the movie and all the acting and everyone was incredible, but when he wasn't on screen, when I wasn't seeing that mustache, even the scene where he had the mustache covered up by the mustache sling in his bed,
Yes.
I was angry. Like I was like, no, get him back on screen. Like
That's why I'm here.
This is what I want to see. I just want to see this guy. I want to see this actor do this thing as much as possible. And this thing, by this thing, I mean not only redo Poirot, who had become such a stale idea of a character, physically and with extra mustache,
Sure.
but to find in Poirot and stuff that I hadn't. It's been years and years since I had read a Poirot novel, and longer still since I had seen any of the Peter Ustinov movies or whatever. But to find in Poirot humanity.
Yeah. It was really striking to me.
Yeah.
As soon as we get to this first instance of melancholy, I suppose, whatever it is that the world disappoints him so.
Right.
It is so perfect for that character, and I don't think I've ever seen that. It's not in the books as far as I remember.
Yeah, not as far as I remember either.
But it completely... It doesn't humanize him exactly. It actually makes him... you start thinking about all the other... difficult men that have become heroes of television, specifically television, ever since House, I think.
Right.
Where the idea is that they get the job done, but they're awful to be around. And then to realize how alienating that is to the person who does the thing.
Yes.
I don't think anyone has ever really tried that, and Branagh found it so fast.
Yes.
He's impatient, he's pissed off, he's angry,
right.
He can't enjoy an egg.
Right.
That's not...
Yeah, and interestingly, like, he is kind to that child.
Yes.
Who finds the eggs at the beginning. Even though they are imperfect. But, yes.
He did his best.
Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden, you're clued into, this is a weird monster, but he's not totally a monster. Yeah. And then, it's still all very, in that early Indiana Jones portion of the movie, by the Wailing Wall, has its exoticization problems.
Sure.
But anyway,
that's also the
and
sort of
colonial, imperialism problems.
Yeah, but that's the playfulness of the 60s and 70s. I mean, he's somehow referring back to the big roadshow movies as well, and making us understand that, in a winky kind of way that makes me less upset.
No, it's not for me to be offended on anyone's behalf. If people found that offensive, then I'm with you. I don't, but even I was sort of like, really? Oh, we're starting at the Wailing Wall with a rabbi, priest, and imam joke.
Yeah.
It reach. It did feel very 70s. You're absolutely right. I hadn't put my finger on that.
He's just going for the I'm going to get his name wrong too. Freddie Young. No, Freddie Young was the actor. Freddie Young, the cinematography.
Yeah.
Like the big sun-blasted Lawrence of Arabia look. Right. Which I respond to like a tuning fork has been knocked. So I'm on his side to figure out the intention right away.
And I think must have been consciously a nod to some of the Roger Moore James Bonds.
I think so, yeah.
Those that you said sun-blasted, but that big bleary opening sun-blasted, exotic cityscape, exotic in quotation marks, of course. But I was just like, oh, this is where we're going. But of course, it then we have that character building moment with the child. We have the character building moment where I'm absolutely sure that it is not in the book that he steps in a big pile of camel shit.
Probably not.
And then has to step with his other foot and say that line, whatever it was, like it's not the he doesn't say shit, but it's not the shit that bothers me, it's the imbalance between the one foot and the other. And you suddenly are like, whoa, what's going on? And then he very quickly, right after the case is resolved, that initial case, he confesses to that British officer that, like, it's a curse. Like, he just sees imperfection and can't stand it.
Yeah.
And it's a trope. Like, it's not an unusual trope. It's like, I am cursed with this superpower.
But it is the worst superpower.
Yeah.
To know forever that everything is off.
Yeah.
And to more or less not be able to correct it.
Yeah.
Which, of course, does pay off in this film because you have this amazing unspoken metaphor running through the entire thing that the murder has been an act of balance.
Right. Exactly.
And that everyone is... yeah.
No.
Really? You don't
look, if I had listened to this before I saw it on the plane, I would have been upset. You won't even watch the trailer.
That's fair.
And you're about to, reveal the whodunit?
Well, we assume. But you're right. It's a fairly fresh film. So we will not talk about the dunning, but we...
But I think you can speak in general terms that there is a metaphor for balance that opens with the first frame of the film, pretty much. There's eggs. Why can't the eggs be the same size? There is a moral rectitude in Poirot that is expressed in that same scene where he says, don't let anyone tell you different. There is good and evil. There is right and wrong. And then that will be tested in the movie. And then another beautiful echo of the whole conundrum when Johnny Depp sits down and forces himself on Poirot. And Poirot does two things. One, he flatly rejects the offer because he knows he's a criminal.
Right.
Which is that moral rectitude again, which you realize that, okay, there is a core. It's not just that he's compelled to solve these mysteries because something's out of place. So he has this moral core that presumably arises from whatever happened with his presumably dead love interest.
The classic Sherlock Holmes, I
Right.
shall never love again, which I've stolen now from young Sherlock Holmes.
Right, exactly,
Oh,
yeah.
God.
But then he also says, he's like, there's this little throw-off line, he's like, Johnny Depp's character says, I hate dining alone, and he says, being alone is my dream, or whatever Poirot says. And being alone is his dream. You also realize not because he has delusional self-regard and thinks he's the best company. It's the only time he might find a certain amount of peace with what's going on in his mind. And the constant, I don't remember how much this was a part of either the earlier film or the book, but the initial setup is like, I need a break. Like, I need to be on vacation. It was such a beautiful, humanizing thing. Like, again, it's a trope. It's like, I want out, but they've dropped me back in.
Sure, yeah.
Whatever it is. But you feel like, oh yeah, when this dude opens his eyes, the world is a puzzle of imperfection. And that Branagh was able to clue into this as a tragic character flaw, or a tragic aspect of his character that then will be tested again by his decision about what to do once he knows the solution. And how does he balance his mania for balance, because the solution, the murder, is an act of balance, versus his moral rectitude. Right, because there is a right thing to do and a wrong thing to do. But what is the right? I was like, "What way to go!" Like this became something, to the point where he gets off the train, and dude goes, "There's been a murder on the Nile," and I'm like, "Yes, get this movie in front of me as soon as possible. I want a sequel."
Yeah, I would not have seen it. I mean, I kind of winced when that line drops because
I loved it so much. It was so corny.
Yeah.
But you say,
but that's it. He's leaning into it. He knows exactly how far to push it, which I think somehow he has learned as a filmmaker through the giant monsters of, he made a Jack Ryan movie. Nobody remembers that. He directed that thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Shadow Recruit, I think. And he made Thor, obviously, the first one.
Yeah, but I just presumed, and Thor is a competently made film.
Mm-hmm. And he's the right choice for it, too. I think to meld the Shakespearean ridiculousness of all the costumes and the fish out of water nature on Earth. He's probably the best person for that first film. Because he has just enough ego to refuse to kowtow to the Marvel machine.
Yes.
And will do his own weird thing.
Right.
And then the Jack Ryan movie, which is utterly forgettable except for one tremendous fight scene in a bathroom. Which had just happened in a Bond movie, so nobody paid attention to it, but it's just really well done.
Christopher Pine, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he the new
Jack Ryan, and now it's Krasinski.
Yeah. Oh, really?
The new Amazon Prime.
I mean,
Jack
talk
Ryan.
about things that no one's asking for.
Yeah.
like it's astonishing to me that they are trying to. I mean, look, a studio owns the rights to these things. Yeah. It's a brand. It's a brand.
It's a viable property.
They're not going to try to. They're not going to ignore a brand that they have, even if its value is a tenth of what it was in the 90s. The first person to play Jack Ryan was Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
Who, at a time when he was still a likable actor.
Yeah.
Like,
and a magnificently spiky choice, too. I mean, that little window of time with Red October and Miami Blues, which is just...
I was just thinking about Miami Blues. I couldn't remember the name of it because it's a terrible name, but he's incredible in it.
Stone classic. And he's fantastic.
And Fred Ward, right?
Fred Ward, Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Oh, yeah, right.
Nora Dunn, weirdly cast as a cop.
Who was the director of that movie?
That was George Armitage, who made Grosse Pointe Blank.
Oh, right.
And very little else. And it's weird because he's so goddamn good at it.
Right. But I mean, when you think about the actors who have portrayed Jack Ryan, it's Baldwin, Harrison Ford,
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, that's the one I was missing.
Yeah.
Then Chris Pine, then John Krasinski.
Yeah.
What do these guys all have in common, other than being white dudes?
Tall white dudes.
Yeah, I mean that. Jack Ryan's whole description might be tall white dude. He's such a nothing character.
Yeah.
Like, that's another one. It's like, do we need to reinterpret? What we need is a Kenneth Branagh. Well, we got it.
Yeah,
he did it.
Yeah, it's happened.
But, like, what if Kenneth Branagh put, like, the most ridiculous beard on Jack Ryan? That's what we need now. We need more, as someone who sports ridiculous facial hair, this is what we need now.
Jack Ryan, master of disguise.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's also taking an old property with Christie, right? I mean, Poirot is a character who's been embodied over and over and over again. People were immediately starting to argue, well, Suchet is so perfect, I can't imagine another Poirot.
Right. Well, that was the problem. That's why I never chose to watch any of those Suchet Poirots, because he was so perfect. Like, when I saw, I was like, yep, that's that unlikable character. Like, unpleasant. Not fun. I was always a Miss Marple person. But,
Well, they're going to redo that with Emily Blunt any day now, you'll see.
Sure.
Everything is viable.
Everything is... well, and we know that now because I opened this whole conversation by saying, who the fuck in the world wants Murder on the Orient Express? And I reached the end of the movie, having watched it in all its subtle beauty and all of its dumb pandering, being so excited. I said, Murder on the Nile, hooray, I want that sequel right away. Too bad it will never happen because I'm sure this was a flop. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And then when I landed and I was talking to people in San Diego about it, I was meeting some friends. I'm like, oh no, they're making that sequel. Like, that movie made a lot of money.
Yeah.
It wasn't
almost immediately.
Yeah. And I'm like, really? That's amazing. Why? And it's like, everyone over 45 went to the movies. Like, that was... There are options that weekend were Thor Ragnarok and Daddy's Home 2, which... Yeah. I happened to look this up. It's not like I know these things.
Right. No,
I'm not. That's not my curse.
That's mine.
Sort of. Yeah, that's yours, right?
I can tell you,
yeah. And so, as an old, look, I'm going to turn 47 this year. Yeah. So I'm getting there, right? But as a grown up with children, I barely am able to get out of the house to see a movie.
Sure.
And when I am, I do go. I'm very happy because most movies are made for children of a kind.
Oh yeah.
I could not be happier that there is a Marvel Cinematic Universe. I saw Thor Ragnarok on the way home, and there's a whole conversation about what did Kenneth Branagh do that allowed Taika Waititi, is that how you pronounce his last name, to make Thor Ragnarok? Like, it's interesting, like that, realizing that character is essentially humorous as opposed to serious was sort of the slow discovery of all the Marvel Cinematic Universes, where they began to realize, oh, this guy's a big dummy. Like, we should just make him fun rather than try to make him serious.
Yeah, and Branagh definitely found that.
Yeah.
The stentorian delivery of foolishness.
Right. And when he smashes his mug on the diner floor, like, that was funny. Yeah. Like, and Chris Hemsworth is a really good comic actor. Like, anyway, no,
feel free.
Well, I don't want to say anything that will prevent me from being cast in a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I love it. I love them.
Kind of surprised it hasn't happened yet. S.H.I.E.L.D. needs agents. By the ton. And his Patton's playing all of them. Yeah,
exactly. And he is, to my dismay, but I must acknowledge, he is the perfect MODOK, which is the villain, the very obscure Marvel villain that I wanted to play.
I still think you could do it.
No, because I'd probably have to shave for the role and I wouldn't want to do it.
It's all dots now.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Well, yeah, as we know from Justice League, it's very easy to remove facial hair from the handsomest man in the world.
It's the most disturbing image. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It is, and that opened the week. That opened the week before. So it was the Battle of Murder on the Orient Express with fake mustaches and
Right.
Oh, no,
this is a whole mustache podcast.
I think
fantastic.
I think we're discovering an unchecked.
So yes, there will be a sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, and this almost 47-year-old is very excited about it. And I was just checking Wikipedia on the way over here, and Branagh is like, "Yeah, I'm going to create a Poirot-verse. Like, if I can do this, I'm going to create a whole MCU based around Agatha Christie."
Right.
For people in their 50s.
I mean, why
like,
not?
because we don't have movies to go see. Like, a lot of grown-ups just don't have movies to go see that are for more or less for grown-ups. It's a dumb adventure, of course. But it's like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
I'm so happy for him.
Yeah. The pitch to me is, when I
If I were really speaking French correctly, it would be a Poirot-diverse. Poirot-diverse.
I have a cold. I can't get it out.
Yeah.
Poirot-diverse. The pitch for me is that
Herculeverse.
Herculeverse.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
it.
Yeah. What's the studio that made this movie?
Fox.
Fox,
Which somehow acquired it from Paramount.
So Disney.
Yeah, now, Jesus, you're right.
Yeah.
So this could also feature the Avengers. But
you're right.
But in period costume.
Crossover.
It wouldn't even have to be a crossover, but they've got, who was the person that occurred to me? Well, just the fact that we now are in a place where there is essentially one studio that rules them all.
Right.
And their rapaciousness has paid off in all of these properties.
I just want to let everyone know at Disney that Norm Wilner said rapaciousness, not me.
I've used this about Disney a lot.
I'm happy with whatever
They're the
you guys are doing.
Langoliers. They chew up everything.
I think you're doing great, Disney. I was so happy to play a voice role in DuckTales this year, and cannot wait for any small part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
Hodgman for Modoc. I do stand with this.
You keep going, Disney. Don't listen to this angry Canadian.
Well, by definition.
Well, okay, but say your words. Now that I've distanced myself.
Okay. I just think it is remarkable that there is another vehicle that they own that is simply by the accident of the time in which it takes place, it's unavailable to the other things.
By vehicle, you mean that train? They own that train?
Well, yeah. They own the train. They own the boat they're building the boat, I'm sure, that's going down there now.
Right.
But the idea that this thing is set forever in the 20s and 30s and that you can't knowingly, winkingly throw something in like that. But you can.
You mean the Marvel universe?
Well, any of the other ones, right? Like the projects they're going to, like everything will someday be stitched together the way Patton Oswalt warned us in Parks and Recreation.
Right.
But with this, you have the opportunity to have an endless parade of actors who
it's great for actors.
Just want to show up and play.
Yeah, it's great for actors,
Yeah.
and things that are great for actors are also great for moviegoers because that's the fun. Like, I'll contrast it with the most astonishing movie that I've seen this year and last, which is The Florida Project, which I just watched 2 nights ago.
Oh yeah.
So I was saying this to my friend Nicholas McCarthy, who is a horror movie director. I know him from high school. He's in town right now.
What are his films? I'm not aware of.
He made a movie with an actor named Katie Lotz, who is now in...
The Machine. Is that his?
No, it's called The Pact.
Oh.
Did you see that one?
I did. I completely blanked that she was in that. It's right there on the wall.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Under P.
Yes, well, right above Paddington, which is sort of adorable.
Yeah. Do you know that...
This is my
I had a waking dream, some weird dream, where in the dream, like I was coming out of sleep, and I had this dream that I was watching a TV advertisement for Paddington 2, and in the dream, but it was one of those dreams where you think it's real, you think it's happening.
Right.
And in fact, the memory of this fake commercial stayed with me for a while, and I was just like, I believed that I had seen it. And in this fantasy, the ad I was watching for Paddington 2, the subtitle for Paddington 2 was Kill Force. It was Paddington 2 Kill Force. I'm like, where are they going with the Paddington franchise? And it took several days before I realized, oh, that's not true. I dreamed that at some point. So, yeah, Nicholas McCarthy, I call him Nick because I've known him since high school. All I ever wanted, he's the person who introduced me to The Evil Dead, to Bruce Campbell, to Cronenberg. I think he's going on a tour next weekend of Cronenberg locations in and around Toronto. A friend of his is taking him around. But so he's in town making a movie now with Taylor Schilling, and we had dinner. And I was saying to him, like, as someone who has had the bizarre good fortune to be able to be in some projects, to step behind the scenes of some TV shows and some movies, and knowing a little bit of how things are made, part of my enjoyment, particularly of Murder of the Orient Express, is seeing the shots and seeing the choices that they made, and particularly with the actors, like watching them, quote unquote, acting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's like, watching Kenneth Branagh do Poirot is a little bit of a masterclass in acting. But he's definitely acting, right? It's like you're showing off all your tricks.
Yeah, it's Meryl Streep calls it indicating, and she says it's the thing she doesn't want to do,
right?
But that sometimes it's the only way to communicate something. Her example was when you're drunk, you try to play sober. You pretend. The best way to play drunk is to pretend you're sober, and that's the intention comes through.
Right.
That you're
because no drunk wants to admit that they're drunk.
Right. Or when you're when you're grieving, try to laugh once or twice. Like you're forcing yourself to laugh. If it looks fake, it communicates the struggle.
Sure.
Inside the actor.
I mean, there's been an artifice to acting forever. Like naturalism in acting is only something that could have happened once we had film, because only then could you capture the subtleties of a face close up and let Ingrid Bergman do a 5-minute monologue without stopping, and the audience could be right like inches from her face, because before that acting was all about projection. Like you go see The Mousetrap in London, and that's just yelling. Like for a long time, acting was just yelling. So, but there's a pleasure in artifice, right? And particularly if you've had an opportunity to see how the sausage gets made, you can enjoy looking at the costumes, and then you can also think about, boy, that costume designer is amazing. I wonder how they did that, or I have an idea of how they did that. What a great idea to have them all sit at the mouth of that tunnel. Was that in the book? Like playing with the artifice is part of the fun. The Florida Project, that I don't know how he did it. I mean, the acting, quote unquote, is so. Among the grown-ups and the kids, across the board, it feels like a documentary, and it feels so unguarded. It feels so unartificial. There are no indicators, and it's a mystery to me. And at one point, I thought, oh well, like to me, it was like. It was a whodunit. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And I drew on all of my understanding, limited as it is, of filmmaking and watching it get done. And I was like, what did he do? How did he get these performances out of these kids? How did he get the kids to be the most incredible improvisational actors of all time? I mean, kids are.
Yeah, I just assume he must have burned.
Sure.
Well, not footage, because we don't do that anymore, but those SD cards are full of scenes that he didn't use.
He shot it on film.
Wait, that's right.
Yeah.
Because only the last moment is...
Yeah. And that's what...
I forgot that.
Because my solution was, he shot it on his phone. Like, he shot it with a digital camera, either on his phone, because he made that movie that was all on...
Tangerine.
Right. Or he shot it with a digital camera that was obviously will allow him to burn, just keep rolling until he has what you want. Right. And that is to say, just not get different takes, but just let everybody be themselves until you find the core of the scene. And also something that had to be completely unobtrusive so that the kids wouldn't get self-conscious. Yeah. And then I went to confirm my incredible solution and discovered that he shot it on goddamn film. And all of a sudden my mind is completely blown, because there's the scene where they're walking through the abandoned condominium. And it's like, was this Steadicam?
Yeah, and you have to light that. You can't...
Well, that is a question mark. Mm-hmm. That's a possibility that may be a no.
You just get away with low-light film? Or
because, the Nick TV show, which I was the star of...
Of course. You're the second star of the Nick that we've had on.
Eric Johnson has been here?
Yeah.
I had a feeling. He's my fave. I love him so much. Tell him I say hi.
I will. You'll love his episode. It's Children We've Met.
Oh, yeah. Right. Another, like, that's one where you're definitely like, oh my God, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Like that. What? Blood on the lens. What a decision.
Yeah.
And that was a mistake, right?
Yeah.
And then he just said, right, yeah.
Keep them all.
Yeah.
He's amazing that way. But I'm sorry, I keep derailing.
Oh, no, but so, maybe Eric told you about this, but in the Nick, it was all practical in the moment lighting. There was no lighting.
Yeah.
And you can see it. I mean, it's a suitably dark look, right? But yeah, Soderbergh, season 1, Soderbergh operated a camera and his friend operated a camera. I'm saying his friend.
Yeah.
They're all his friends, right? It's his team.
Yeah, it's...
And it was the fastest I've ever worked on a set because he knew every shot that he wanted to get. He had basically pre-edited everything. The only thing I added was I took off my gloves. My weird psychiatric doctor gloves.
Yeah.
And he said, my only contribution to the Nick was, as far as I'm concerned, when Steven Soderbergh said, do that again, I want to get that. I'm like, oh, I gave you something that you weren't looking for. In the second season, then I come back in the second season, my monster doctor comes back in the second season to have dinner in the same house with the same family. It's like I had a whole monologue, and I'm like, I'm going to Ingrid Bergman this up. A long, like minutes long talk of just me holding court at this table. And he shoots it over here, and he shoots it over here, and he shoots it over here. And he's like, great, now you go upstairs and you come down and we're going to put sweat all over your face because now you're having a digestive problem. Not to give away anything.
No.
And I'm like, oh, I'm about to say, are you sure you want to put sweat on my face? Because it's going to be hard to get that off when you come around and shoot my face for this long monologue that I've rehearsed for. And I realized, oh no, he's not going to shoot my face. I'm not going to. My Ingrid Bergman moment is the back of my neck. Like he just. And it was this astonishing moment that, I'm an untrained and dilettante-ish actor. They asked me to be in a thing, I'll show up and do my best. But I love it as a craft. It's something I would love to do more and learn to do better. And I think I've gotten better. But it was this moment, and I think I was pretty good in that scene. But realizing that, like, oh, Steven Soderbergh doesn't have to shoot my face. Because Steven Soderbergh feels that there is nothing I can show him as an actor in that moment that he will find necessary. There is no surprise that I can offer him. I took off my gloves one time. That's what I got. That was my addition. But like, and appreciating, like, Steven Soderbergh's probably right. Like, there's probably nothing I can do. Like, I will probably drop a lot of indicators and do a lot of quote unquote acting with my face. It probably will look phony. It won't be natural like those kids in the Florida Project. And that was a humiliating but growth experience for me.
Right.
And but the point of the, not only does he pre-edit everything, but he didn't have studio lighting. He had no lighting to set up in any of the shots, so he could just move around all the time. And so that was a couple of years ago, right? He had some camera that allowed for you to shoot in low light and make it look beautiful.
Right. But it was digital, right? I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah.
The thing about the Florida Project, lighting film is so specific.
Kubrick shot...
Barry Lyndon.
And that was all candlelight.
With lenses he designed himself.
Right. But
Kubrick was insane.
The technology exists in the world, and what we have to remember is there is probably no more beautiful natural light than Florida in the afternoon. Like, you're working with the most incredible light all the time. Mm-hmm. Having driven through Florida a year ago on tour with the Boston Pops, having a whole lot of cliches in my head about Florida and having all of them challenged. It's an amazing place, and boy, oh boy, that's part of the movie is that even in the scuzziest outlier of Orlando, the whole world is touched by this beautiful swampy wilderness and this beautiful light. So I bet you, and there's big fluorescent lights in that motel. Like, yeah. I bet you that might be the secret. You probably didn't need to, but it's crazy. So that whole, that's one where the solution still eludes me, which is a great mystery to solve.
Mm-hmm. And so...
Can't wait to reboot it.
Yeah.
I'm doing my own The Florida Project.
Florida Project Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, that's right. Just my reinterpretation of Willem Dafoe's, because I'm gonna be walking on top of the motel. I'm gonna have a huge mustache, and it's like, who am I? I am probably the greatest hotel manager in the world. It's gonna be great, everybody. You can feel it, right?
I'm in for that. Yeah. So the last question on the podcast, very quickly, is. Simply, is there anything? I mean, it's such a fresh film and so distinct that I can't imagine that there is. But is there anything from Murder on the Orient Express that you want to steal or borrow or use at some point?
I want that mustache for sure. Like, when did it come out?
November 2017.
So it was after Halloween.
Yes, just.
And this coming Halloween will be too late. People will, or maybe it'll be perfect. Maybe I can lose 30 pounds and grow an incredible mustache. And I could be Poirot for Halloween.
I think he had it applied. I think there is a better solution, which is that you don't have to do that to yourself.
I'm not sure the human face can make 3 mustaches appear on your cheek or whatever it is. But anyway. So is that what would I steal or take
is
or
there anything,
borrow?
Yeah, something that you'd want to incorporate into your own creative DNA.
Yeah, no, I would like to watch a supercut of that movie with just Branagh's face in it. And just watch what he does, and I'll allow Judi Dench to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all. I mean, I don't want to take away from Michelle Pfeiffer's performance. She is incredible, and particularly by the last scene. That I would look at that again, just try to learn how to act. Do you know what I mean? See what they're doing. Like, I feel like there's so much going on in his face that I would love to watch. And I would watch Michelle Pfeiffer because her revelation at the end makes it clear that that all of the really highly indicating acting that she was doing at the beginning of the movie was on purpose. Like, she was the drunk who didn't know how to act, or she was the person who didn't know the Meryl Streep trick to acting drunk. And it was at the beginning it was jarring. It's like, come on, Michelle Pfeiffer, you're better than this. You can do it better than this. And then you realize why she's doing it. That's pretty amazing, right? So yeah, I would. But I mean, I'm diluting my vision here for my own interest in doing better as an actor. I would take that supercut of just mustache shots. Mustache. If the stash isn't in it, I don't want to see it. Someone out there, please make it for me and send it to me.
Oh God, that's going to happen.
That will happen. I hope so. And I really, really need to be in Murder on the Nile. So. Disney.
That's right. If you can't have MODOK.
Look, no, I can do both.
You could be a porter, you could be a steamship captain.
What? Daisy Ridley can be in Star Wars and Poirot, but I can't just because she's talented and doesn't look like a weirdo?
And that's how it starts.
Yeah, no, I can be MODOK and I can be... Poirot's assistant was Hastings in the book. He was the narrator, I feel like, a lot of the time. But he didn't appear in all of the books. He was sort of the sidekick assistant. But I'll be Hastings, or look, I got the weird facial hair already. Put me in, coach. Don't listen to Norm Wilner. You're doing great, Disney.
You see, I want to see Poirot judge your facial hair in one scene. You enter.
Oh, his brain would break because it is profoundly imperfect and asymmetrical in every way. Yeah. My facial hair is a terrible puzzle that will never be solved.
So that's the hook.
That's the hook, yeah.
My thanks to John Hodgman, whose book Vacationland is available in a new paperback edition as of today. Check out your local independent bookstore or order it from the internet retailer of your choice. You should also be listening to the Judge John Hodgman podcast on the Maximum Fun Network. It's weird and delightful, and your life will be better for it. You can find John on Twitter at Hodgman, and you can find Murder on the Orient Express on Blu-ray and DVD from 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment. It's also available on iTunes and Google Play. And we checked. The song in the trailer is Imagine Dragons' Believer. And it really is a banger. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you feel like leaving a review on iTunes or Apple Podcast, that would be greatly appreciated. Every little bit helps, it truly does. Thanks for your support, and thanks for listening.